So one of the first things, why don't we just get started with like, easy mode is what I'm going to call it, like our web search example. So let me go ahead and share my screen and give you a sense of like, just as something as simple as like, if you could imagine your job, we're doing this for AI regulation because that's kind of how I think about it, but it could be breaking news of the Supreme Court. It could be this, latest IP litigation that you're tracking, whatever's moving in your world. And this can be global as well. It doesn't have to be limited to the US. It doesn't have to be limited to certain states. And I think all of us struggle with just the amount of information that's out there, where to get that information. And so I love this search just because it's going to just do it every morning at 9 a.m. So that's like it's scheduled for you. It's going to do what you're kind of curious about and then have it broken down the way that you want to see it. So here's kind of like a little sample of us running this report. This is our monthly AI regulation report. Gives me a sense of what's moving. I can kind of, it has like key call outs, like states that we should be paying attention to, which I love, but I saw a lot of people that are international. You could, this is easily adaptable to your use cases as well. Maybe there's some key cases that are starting to pop in this area. You want to make sure that you're at the water cooler or chatting with your partner or your colleagues, and you're like, oh, yeah, of course I know Starbucks v. Google, which I don't, but now I do. And then like the nice thing about this is like it also kind of like resets your focus for the day of like, okay, given that's what's going on like externally, now I can use that to set up a meeting with somebody. Like I can use this to maybe do a deep dive, like Florida versus AG. Never heard of that one before. So why don't, like tell me more about that. Oh, I don't like it. So tell me more about that. And it would just basically like take it from there. Um, so one of the things that's great, people are always like, well, why can't I just Google that? It's like, well, Perplexity is an AI powered search. It's using LLMs to basically combine with the power of web search. It's using natural language. So I know all of us kind of are more accustomed to doing that web search, using those keyword searches that we grew accustomed to using, that language that we used as the internet was coming up. And now you can just kind of use real language, and it's actually going to, that natural language is actually going to like help you find the thing you're looking for a little faster instead of like trying to figure out like what the keyword that's going to like unlock where you're trying to go. It can bring in so much more context for you. So I love that. So yeah, that's is our simple web search. So I'll pause there. Jenny, questions, or should we go into the next one?
Yeah, I just want to call out the sources tab. So there are between search and computer, a lot of folks who have used search before. There's always citations, and computer it's the same way. You can look through all the citations that it's sourcing, and click directly exactly where it's taking the information from. So there's always a way to backtrack and confirm, double check the information that computer is pulling from.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because people are like, oh, how do I trust the AI? I don't trust the AI. Like, I have great judgment. Well, this doesn't substitute your judgment. This actually just allows you to do it in an organized way. And then you can do what you already do using your lawyer brain to go and look at the sources and where everything came from. And then you can kind of like actively decide, like, how do I feel about these sources? How are they saying it? Can I, take a critical lens to that? So that's absolutely what I love to take a look at this for, and I point people to. And I click through to a lot of these sources just because of the lawyer in me. So great call out.
And just in case, maybe let's just say that you don't trust AIlegal.com. That's also just a follow-up that you can make with computer too, to say, please rerun this without these specific sources, or please rerun this and double down on the specific sources that I like.
Yeah, like I think SCOTUS blog is like a very well recognized, well known blog. It's like that's a for instance. I haven't tried it, but like you could say those are the types of places that I want to use. And I think that that content there is very authoritative. So you can help it to like kind of determine, and it can be a back and forth dialogue with which sources it's pulling from. Cool.
Nice.
Well, that's web search. Should we do a fun one? Not that they're not
Yeah,
all fun.
let's do it.
All right. I was Jenny and I were we're prepping for this, and I think it can be really fun for non-lawyers, for lawyers to think about like it's hard to think in your exact practice area sometimes, like what the broader applications are of things. And so we have this really great feature called Model Counsel, which will basically allow you to kind of like, if you're looking at your life, it's on a chessboard, it basically helps you like flip it. So we wanted to use like more of a silly example, like more of a pop culture example, because this is like something that isn't really like knowable or a fact. And I think it helps like tease out like what's really great about this. I think this also like gets to the point of like, which model should I be using? Like, I'm using Opus, but I don't know, or like maybe I don't even know what Opus means. Like, this is, what's great about Perplexity is like you don't have to know what the best models are because we already do that work for you. You are using the best models like when you're on our platform. You only need that one subscription, and then you can draw and take a look at how different models treat information differently, which evidence that they might cite. Then you can see like where they disagree. Like you're it's like, oh, all the AI, it'll just tell me this. It's like, well, they actually take different positions too, which I think is really interesting. And I think it's also like it helps you kind of get comfortable and build trust with like the basis for some of the decision making or the some of the like I shouldn't say decision making, but more of the like analytical process that they go through. Because you obviously own the decision, you own the judgment, but it can kind of show its work a little bit more. The other thing I love about it is that, yeah, like it can like uncover things, like maybe one of them like uncovered something very interesting, have like a unique finding. But then it can like ultimately like draw on all this and give you a comprehensive like answer, which I think is really great too. My personal favorite, and this is where my personal bias, because UCLA grad, but I do think that LeBron should have stayed at in LA. So thank you, GPT, for that. Or I guess it's Opus and Gemini 3.1. Yeah, I think the other thing I like to demonstrate with Model Counsel is when you have something that's like really challenging, just to bring it like more to a serious level and think about how it applies to legal work. When you have a problem, us lawyers, we're paid to basically see like the next move on the chessboard and the next six moves. And then you want to understand what your opponent's going to do as well. And this works in like contract litigation, negotiations. This, it really runs the gamut. Like we're all doing this all the time. And I think this also helps you develop like what are the counter arguments to my position? Because one of the things that we get, I think, just as humans is like you get really kind of like wedded emotionally to like one line of thinking and you start to like have that confirmation bias built in. So then now you can like basically flip the chessboard around. Maybe you were playing white, now you're going to play black. And then you're like, oh, that's like where that is a weakness. Or that allows me to anticipate what what someone I'm working with, negotiating with might be saying in response. So I really love that. Like you can say, oh yeah, like I kind of knew you were gonna go that way because da da da. And then that you can kind of come up with some fallback positions. So let's say you're a Supreme Court litigator. Hopefully there's some of those on the phone. But it's like you have your initial response, you have like what's going to happen as a follow-up, you have your challenge, like you can kind of go in ready to go. So yeah, that's our fun Model Counsel example. Jenny, anything else you wanted to call out?
Yeah, I for the first one on AI regulation updates, I don't know if you some folks have caught it that you can schedule this on a daily basis. So we've seen some of our customers, they set up a model counsel every day and they upload and connect their arguments or something that they're working on. And you can have model counsel check every single day with my updated notes, with my updated thinking and my memo that my team and I have been working on, keep poking holes in our argument. And instead of people have historically opened up Claude, opened up GPT, opened up Gemini, and typed the same question in every single time. And this really just guarantees a 360 view. To Allison's point about flipping the chessboard and seeing if you can catch any holes in your argument.
Yeah, I think this is like really valuable. I find like at actually the end of the process too, like let's say you've been going deep on a research project and you're really trying to get to like the answer that makes the most sense for like your client, like where the law is, and then you're starting to go down like one road and then you're again the confirmation bias is like starting to like kick in a little stronger and you're like, great, I've got it. I've got it. I've got it. Like this has to be the thing. And I don't know about you, but I know in my career I've definitely like gone and presented like what I consider as like the most comprehensive answer I could have thought of, like that ever was. I did all the work and then I brought it to like a client or a senior partner and they like immediately flipped it on me and caught like what I hadn't thought about. So I think this is like just another great prep tool. And then I think it also does build confidence in how models are approaching information.
So if you agree with LeBron going to the Sixers or not, let us know, but maybe you could try some others as well. On computer, you can just click the plus sign on the Omni bar, and you should be able to see model council to initiate all three. You could also choose the three different models as well. So um, if you maybe specifically like Fable for deep thinking or Opus, etc.
Yeah, great point. I think as you start to work in AI, like more and more, you realize that some of these models are better at certain questions. And that you can also use it to like do some quality control or like, again, once you get to the end, it's like you think you have the answer, now go like double check. So yeah, I love that part about it. Cool. Should we move on to maybe another one?
Yeah,
On
maybe
one?
another skill.
Ooh, okay. So, one of the things I love about Perplexity is it can basically take a lot of my, like, I don't know, us layers have lots and lots of information, like, kind of coming at you. You also have to think about what you already have. So, you have a question, and maybe you need to draw on what is like in your, like, Drive folder or your SharePoint or like maybe it's your company's whatever repository you have and trying to search for that. I call that like dumpster diving for like digital like contracts sometimes or like, trying to find a needle in a haystack. You basically have all these different files. It's so cheap to like start a new document these days and so cheap to like set up a new file and easily can get things lost. So now you can kind of bring together multiple different sources and try to kind of bring a comprehensive look without having to do as much of that manual labor that you would have had to do. So here we have an example of like, you're trying to get something done. Maybe you're on your phone. Maybe you're moving quickly. Maybe you have meetings. You're in between a meeting and you're like, I know that there was something in my inbox. I know that we have a whole contract repository. I actually used this yesterday because I was trying to build a new model template for something. And I needed to flip a contract to somebody really quickly. And it's like, yeah, go ahead and like look at all of our prior red lines or negotiation history. Make sure that you bring over some of like the key points that we like always push back on. And then like, take that, summarize that all up. And, now we're going to have like some sort of like repetitive or repeatable guidance. So yeah, like here we can kind of take a look at how we did that. This is like a pretty meaty prompt. Um, but yeah, I literally did this yesterday, not this particular example, but I did do this and it literally helped me come up with like a new Perplexity template, helped me move a lot faster. I didn't have to go ask our contracts person, our legal ops person. I didn't have to go through every line of my Gmail and try to figure out where was that email. It pulled both like the email, the context. It looked at all our previous red lines on similar contracts. It actually took a little too far and I had to dial it back a little bit. And I was like, okay, not like, don't put out the most protective version of this. Maybe we dial back to like something that's like people are most likely to accept and like what we are most likely to live with. And so now I have that and I can actually just like flip it out right away and I can tell it to email that out. And hopefully we get to basically turning a signed, like building a new template to having a signed contract in under 24 hours, basically.
One thing you mentioned that I want to call out is preferences. There are preferences to be super strict. There are preferences to have specific language across the work that you do. And Perplexity does pick that up and store it in its memory. But there are ways that you could either turn it off if that is something that you don't want to keep on. Maybe it's different client work or different types of projects. But just wanted to shout that one out, that it continues to memorize your preferences.
Yeah, it gets better and better as you use it. And I think the reason that I find it very valuable is you don't have to bring so much context to every single individual prompt. It's going to start grabbing more context and then reusing that context like the more you call on it. And I think that's what Jenny is saying, like it gets better and better, and I'm trying to like break down like how does it get better and better? Like it's like, well, it's just going to remember like I'm a lawyer, I'm at Perplexity, we've, done this contract before, maybe we've done that contract together like 50 times. Like it's going to start to remember like, how you what you tend to call for and what you try to set as like the stage when you're prompting.
Someone
Cool.
did have a question on different models. So for this one, you can maybe see on the bottom right under the Omnibar, it selected a specific model that's happening. But what's happening in the back end is that it's distributing different models for the right task. So for research, maybe the more recent model of Opus is better at doing research. Maybe a different model of GPT is doing better at summarizing and building it out into a memo. It generally builds that out into the thinking steps. So a lot of folks are asking, how do I know which is the best AI platform? We're constantly fine-tuning our backend to better understand what is going to be the best output. So if this is also by preference, if you know and you've been testing out different models are better for some things, you can get specific. But if not, this is also where you can just trust Perplexity.
Yeah, it's great. I love to experiment with different models. So what I will do when you're starting like a new thread, you can actually go here and you can just say like, pick me the best model. And what Perplexity, because it has so much information about what models are good at which tasks, it will route you to the right one for what you're asking about. And when I mean like which tasks, like some models are very good at coding and that they've been kind of trained to do that a little bit better. We don't, us lawyers might not necessarily need that. We need the models that are more attuned to like formatting, figuring out like formal context versus informal context, bringing all that like what's interesting and useful and required in the legal practice, those kinds of contexts. And so it can kind of find what's the model. You don't have to play the should I go sign up for Claude? Should I go sign up for Anthropic? Or I'm like confused and now I'm stuck. And you can just start here as a good entry point, and you will like naturally start to learn some preference. You'll start to have some preferences for models naturally over time, even though you don't have to know why. That's true. I still don't know why. I'm like, I don't know. I kind of like that one. Like maybe it's
But if a
faster.
new one comes out, it takes
Yeah, when a
time.
new one comes out and
Yeah.
then you try that one out. So that is pretty fun.
Okay, I also saw someone ask, what's the difference between search and computer? These are computer queries, though they more of the research ones you can you can dive deep with search. But when it comes to actually building out something with the information, whether it be a dashboard or an app, that is where a computer is going to come in extra handy. And I think we have a pretty cool one lined up next.
Oh, great. So this is like when I think about setting the stage, this is like the most beautiful thing to look at. So I'm gonna like let you guys look at this, but I'm gonna explain like what are you looking at. Us lawyers have to sort through a lot of rules, a lot of regs. They could be state specific. Every state, county, jurisdiction, they may like house those rules differently, and they may be like in different parts of different code sections. And you could see why this lent itself to like printing like literally everything out and then using a highlighter and tabbing everything and then trying to like coalesce it and bring it all together. What's great about this is just to give you an example and to get you thinking creatively about how you might be able to apply this to your world. This is something that's useful for a litigator. I don't do a ton of litigation, but I can immediately see like if I needed to know, let's say privacy laws, like which states are moving privacy laws right now, like where would I be able to find the citations for that? Like which one has like the strictest rule? Here we're doing it on based on like subpoenas and what are the different rules, and you can see that there's a lot of variety. Um, And then this can also, like, just to zoom it out, this can work globally too. I know a lot of us, especially if you're working for international companies, or you're supporting international companies at an outside counsel law firm, we can get really stressed. I'm like, I don't know that area of the law, or I don't know that country's particular legal regime. I'm being asked to opine on, this jurisdiction. I didn't go to law school there. I don't practice that. But I think what's great is that Perplexity can basically pull that all in, visualize it for you in a way that's like very digestible. And again, it's not going to replace your judgment. This isn't replacing anything. It's just giving you the citations and allowing you to see like what the rules actually are. And then to the extent it's making like, oh, this is like strict or less strict, like you can go and interrogate that and kind of apply your own judgment on top of this. But I find this to be like a very novel and easy way to grab a bunch of different rules that may or may not conflict, bring them all together, visualize it, and then give you a little bit more of a roadmap for where you're going to go next. Instead of spending the entire time, like, this could have been like a summer project that like an intern plus would have had to do, plus a bunch of engineers to like make this visualization. I know when I was at previous companies, I always had to like beg, borrow, and steal for engineering talent and like have them come and help me like make sense of like all these different repositories or rules or things that I'm trying to organize. And Perplexity, I think, can do this. I think we did this in like a one shot. Now you have to be super, I mean, this is not, this is not the result you're gonna expect every time, but like, you're gonna see you'll get better and better at being able to produce like this quality of thing as you go.
Yeah, someone was asking where do you even start with computer to build this? And it is all really starting from your curiosity and your where you want to go with it. And you're saying, hey, like here's who I am, here's my goal, here's I'm trying to accomplish. What I would really like is this information. And it would be best if I could, oh, I'm so sorry, I got too still. My lights turned off. But it is, there we go. But you can then kind of keep tweaking and following up and say, hey, I would actually really like this information in this way. Perplexity will try to do its best to understand what you're trying to accomplish and make maybe a few UI guesses. But yes, we will be sharing the query used to build out this dashboard. As with all the queries in today's workshop, and hopefully that can give you some inspiration to build your own.
Amazing. Yeah, this is, I mean, it's really impressive, but you can also see like how generally applicable it is, whether, it doesn't matter what area of the law you're practicing in. We all have to do this heavier work that isn't the most fun. Um, and so, yeah, bringing in something that can just like synthesize a lot of data that's in a lot of different styles and in a lot of different places, and then bring it together to basically build. I'm going to go back to the chessboard now and see like this is going to like help you build your chessboard. Like what rules, what are your constraints, what are you working with, and now you can start to see like where your strategy can come in, what is novel in your circumstance. Like it just kind of like sets you up to now apply your judgment, your experience, instead of I wasted all my time trying to like tab and highlighting, like go find these things.
Someone was also calling out the freshness of this dashboard, and it is also just a matter of asking and following up, hey, can you update this every day? And if you can connect it with some infrastructure tools like Supabase or even publish it on Vercel, that can also make sure it's storing the information if you also want it within a specific backup or other security measures with that platform as well.
It's another great point. So when I worked at a different company, I had like a 50 state jurisdiction, I would say, I guess, practice, where we had to basically keep a massive spreadsheet. My brother's an accountant, and so he's like, "Oh my God, never let lawyers like input into spreadsheets because all they do is just put in like so many words." But I mean, that's like the best tool we have, right, to do a 50 state survey. but then those rules change all the time. So then who's responsible for keeping it up to date? And I think we've all had that experience if you've tried to organize 50 states rules, that the first challenge is getting it all organized and the second is keeping it evergreen. So I think it's a great point what Jenny is saying is like, yeah, you could build this so that it keeps it evergreen and you're not like kicking out like stale giant Excel spreadsheets that
Hmm.
looked at once and then they immediately became stale and you can't use them anymore. And then, what a wasted effort.
I think that to that point, it sounds like a change log would be super helpful on a daily basis to know exactly where. So remember, Perplexity is always using specific sources that you're either pointing it to or trying to see what is what is the most referenceable and accurate. You can also ask computer in plain language to say, please pull that out into a change log by state, by date, note when this was changed, and let me know and let me see the article that it is sourcing it from. So that is just by um, asking and following up.
I think this gets us into like the other thing I wanted to show, which is basically like how could you do like a more like this is more of a snapshot, right? And you can keep it up to date. But we also have this for you, which is like how we've thought about building something that is meant to stay perpetually up to date and is meant to help you like find things like that are quick moving that require like real time tracking. I can't think of a better example than regulatory and policy work. You really do have to basically take that 50 state map and then look at which state legislatures are moving, which laws have come into place, what regulators are saying. And so you can basically build this for yourself without having to explain to engineers within your company or the IT department at your firm, like, this is what I need to be successful. This is what's going to make my life like so much easier. You can basically be your own engineer and you can say that I would like to have, something going like this and keep things, up to date, tracked. I want it all organized in a beautiful way that makes sense to me. I think there's been a huge gap in how we all use software in our personal lives. And then when I come back to like what legal teams have, I think there's been like a real drop off in terms of like the creativity and engineering resources that have been applied to solving legal use cases. So again, I think that's what gets me like really passionate about Perplexity. It's like, yes, finally, I have the tools. I feel like, superwoman to have like my brain plus Perplexity going at these questions and basically building my own products for what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Someone mentioned recently the the best idea, the best suggestion to get started is build the worst version of your best idea.
Oh, I
I
love it.
think one-shotting is really overrated. It's pretty cool
Explain
when you
what
get,
one-shotting is in case people don't know what that
yeah,
means.
one-shotting means you submit one query or one prompt and then you get exactly what you wanted. That would be insane if all the context that you have in your files in your company and what they know about you and pulling all that context into a dashboard, what you don't see behind here is the iterating. Maybe like after you start using a bit, you want to add a review queue. After you want to pull in external intelligence, you could also follow it up. And it's really, I keep thinking like, what is your idea? And it's okay if it's a bad idea, but it needs to start somewhere. And you can just keep fine tuning it with the best thing is just in your plain language rather than how can I translate this to an engineer so they would be able to understand. So
Yeah,
this
I
way you
find
won't have
like
to compromise.
breaking it down, like starting from the big picture, but then you can also ask Perplexity to help you. You don't have to have the answer, like how to do it, because most of us didn't go and become product managers or product designers, or we're not familiar with, all the human factor work that goes into like making our apps really smooth and easy to use. That's okay because now you have Perplexity. You can tap into that knowledge that's already out there that you just haven't been able to access or be aware of. And then you can say, like, hey, I have this challenge. What I would like to see is And can you help me think through and build like what you like help me build and improve this? What are questions you might want to ask me? What do you information might you need from me? And it will like start iterating with you and give you a sense and basically like brainstorm with you before it gets to like this level of like, oh my gosh, I have this like super complicated, multi-layered app that's doing all the things. If this feels like too much, and oftentimes it is very hard, like Jenny said, to do it all at once in one question. So start with, your like more of an ideating space and think about more about like what's your biggest challenge, what feels heavy for you today, what makes it harder for you to get your work done on a day-to-day basis. And frankly, I find like starting with a pen and paper is often like it's like, what is my, just to be able to write, like, what is my biggest challenge? Like it's like a little bit of a period of self-reflection. And then you can go back to Perplexity to say, all right, I'm ready to take this one on, and let's go. And you'll be so blown away by what you get back.
Someone was asking about connectors or files that you share with customers. We connect to all the different file apps. So whether that be Box, SharePoint, Dropbox, and like I mentioned earlier, it respects the permissions that you have that other users have of what files they have access to. So if that is a shared file, you can also ask it to connect there. And same with data licenses as well. So I believe maybe LegalZoom isn't the best example for this crowd, but you can connect your LegalZoom license. There might be different tools and you might have different access that will also respect your permissions as well.
Yeah, there's like ways to connect, Pacer or other LexisNexis, like other subscriptions that you have, you can basically like put computer on top of some of your existing subscriptions, your existing resources across your company that help bring information in. And it's really great at trying to like plug those in and talk to it, and take some of this manual work of having to like take a concept here, move it to another database, pull that data, pull from that database, and I'll bring it all together. But DocuSign and Box are like a great example. Drive, like even just being able to do that. I try to tell the product team around here, I'm like, think simple. Lawyers, you'll blow lawyers away with just like being able to like link your email, your files, and oh my God, cherry on top, DocuSign. You could push something out to somebody like and have it signed by them. Using your DocuSign connector, using your DocuSign credentials, but not having to leave your screen, not having to download something, to upload something, to spend the time putting all the little signature blocks in all the little right places. I think I had to sign a housing contract. I was selling a house and I needed to like have, I don't know, however many fields put down and with initials and three parties. And I basically was like, oh my gosh, I don't know, this is like a whole day project I don't have time for. And then, threw it into Perplexity and, basically we got it done. We got it done in a couple of minutes. So yeah, let me pause there. Any other things on this, or can we go into maybe using some of that proprietary data? We've got a good example.
I think one thing we don't go into in this example, but it's not just reading the information that you have from connectors, but you can also write too. So every different connector, for our direct integrations, we have settings on what you can push information to. So whether it be you have a updated contract, you could push that to DocuSign, get it loaded up. I update a lot of documents in my Google Drive and I ask computer once it does a review and provides comments to push it to Google Drive. But speaking of documents, I think that would be great to show, even if you do work with a lot of offline documents. I know some places are a little bit more warier on connecting, or you're going back and forth offline on a specific agreement. You could also upload that as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. We use this a lot. We often get like third-party paper, for example, and it comes over via email. It comes over in as a PDF. It comes over as a Word doc. It's not in our files. We can't just call it. And so we're downloading it, we're uploading it, and we can bring it to Perplexity and like immediately have it kind of take a pass at this. So yeah, we have a lot of tooling that's basically set up to do contract review and make contract review a little bit more efficient, rather than you having to kind of like be in a dark room in a basement with like no light to like really, 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 really focus and make sure that you know where all the, prior negotiation points were. And then go over like with a fine tooth comb, like making sure that there's no mistakes. Like this can kind of call this out for you. And then it's not doing it for you. You're not like skipping the part that you review the contract, but it's making it a little bit more fun. It's like you sent it to, a junior associate to take a first pass, and now it's going to flag something for you, like some errors. I love this because I I have a tendency to make a lot of typos. I feel like my analysis, I spend so much time on the analysis and getting the legal argument right. And then my typos are just glaring. And it was like something I, had to live through all my years of practicing, because as lawyers, we actually have like a filter for thinking about things. Like if you have like one typo, basically your document's trash. Like doesn't
Oh
matter what
no.
the substance is. And that puts a lot of pressure on us. We feel a lot of pressure to get things right, which is then what slows us down ultimately, because you need to have a lot of brain space. You need to have basically like the time, the energy. You need to have like the right conditions to like really heavily focus on something. So, and it could be like relatively simple, but your day to day could be kind of crazy that day. And you're like, I know all of us, all of my friends, all of my coworkers are like, I mean to do this thing, but I just need the headspace. I just need to take 15 minutes when I have a second. Well, this is like the extra seconds you're getting back. Computer's taking a crack at it for you. And it's kind of like mapping out like where you might want to spend like the most amount of attention. Like that's like a glaring error. Like here there's like some things that are like not, like consistent. Like here we can flag this. This doesn't mean you have to accept all of these things. It doesn't mean they're all right. There could be things in there that you're like, but yeah, based on my experience, like that's not a problem. We can leave that in. Or like if I were to take that out, the other side would give me like so much more hassle than it's worth. Great. That's where you apply your judgment. This is not a substitute for judgment. It's just meant to make it a little bit easier to apply that judgment. So here you can kind of like call your attention to things. I know, Perplexity often takes a first pass for me, and they very much operate like a junior associate where it issues spots but doesn't solve the problems. And so a lot of it is like, and so what? Like, what if I did have this? Well, those are the questions you can iterate with it too. So it doesn't mean like just because it did this one pass, you can't go back and like keep working on it. But yeah, I think we find this to be like a really helpful tool internally, particularly for people like me. Like I always say I'm like good enough or dangerous enough in contracts, but not like I am not a pro. I don't think, and you can go ask my previous employers, like, would you want to pay this person to like do contracts all day? And I think the mutual answer to that is no. But I like know enough to be dangerous. Like I can do a contract here and there, but it gives me more confidence when I'm doing that I'm not accidentally like overlooking something that a more trained like person that does contracts like day in day out has been doing it for 20 years would catch.
Yeah. One thing here is that you'll see that there's only two words in the query, and that's because we triggered a skill. What skill is that you can condense your instructions into a skill, and you can make it very specific to how you want it to be. So rather than brain dumping all of your context about who you are, what company you work for, what type of severity you want this agreement to be looked at in, um, any way to personalize it, you would just be able to put in a skill. You could either do a forward slash, or there's a little plus button that goes through your entire skill library, and then it'll go through all the instructions that you had it do in the beginning. So it's not going to do it in a follow-up, unfortunately, but maybe if you want to go to the homepage, Allison.
I go like, what am I?
Yes. So at the bottom on the plus sign, you will be able to oh, I think it's because this is a demo account, so we don't
Yeah,
have
it's
it
a demo
quite
account. I know
set up
that's
for
the
you.
problem. That's why I'm like, I hate clicking
Yeah.
around to like,
Um,
but
wanted
basically
to
what I would do is like, let's say I'm trying to do that. It's like, let's build a skill. which is just a fancy way to say let's do something that's repeatable where you can like bring context for and then like think about optimizing for like a particular result. So that's what Final Pass essentially is like our version of um, just building you a skill that's like, yeah, build me. I want to be able to have you do a final pass. I feel like I'm done with the contract. It looks pretty good to me. Now I'm ready to push it out. What do do a final pass on it? And we had it basically go research what makes for good contracts or and then you can say now research for what makes good contracts at my company. And then basically remember that. And that's the skill. It just brings that memory, that context to a new document, a new example without you having to be like, remember, I am a lawyer. Remember that I have all these contracts. Remember, you have to go like search them. Remember this. It takes the even that friction out of the process.
Speaking of repeatable things, I think we have time to share just one last project.
Ooh, I love projects. I'm really excited to share this one. I've been going really big on projects lately, and this we've had like what was it called before, Jenny? They
It
were
was called
called
Spaces.
spaces. So you may be familiar with spaces if you're a longtime Perplexity user. If you're not, that's okay. This is basically like the V2 version. Like this is the next level. So yeah, we have like maybe you're going to be working on like one particular thing more intensely, and it's going to have a lot of sub projects to it. So you can kind of like start to organize from the beginning. And then when you're starting like new sessions, like let's say you wanted to like do a new session here, gosh, go back. You can be like, go like go look for context from my commercial litigation project. And now you have the power to ask something, bringing in all of this context here. I'm
And
like,
then you can also always edit the instructions. So your mouse is hovering right over it. Maybe you can click the edit button to show, oh, it's my mouse, sorry, bottom right on the context side.
oh yeah,
Yeah. You can add context of instructions. You can add persistent files to this project. Also, prioritizing specific links. Back to where I said you can focus on links. When you add links and files here, this context will be prioritized in the search. There's a way that you can say, I only want you to search these files and links, or you can just have it prioritize as well as search the rest of the web and the files that you have connected.
to put it
Um,
to like a real world example, we're using like commercial litigation, and litigation's a really great example for this, what this does for you, because you're constantly having to refer in litigation to like the previous ruling, the previous like order, the previous stipulation, like all those files that are generated just from one single case. You have to basically like work within the sandbox that is that case. And you also have to bring in like prior precedent from outside of that, but you really, really need to think about like what happened in this case already. That's like some of the most important things. So then it can also help you find like the needle in the haystack that's in some of those documents. Like, gosh, remember like maybe you're not using this even for a current project. Maybe this happened 6 months ago or 2 years ago. It's like, what was that case? And we made this like great argument, and it was the most winning argument, and then the judge loved it and then like cited it in her ruling. Like you can use that. And that's what Jenny's trying to say is like you can have it like really focus on particular files. And so you can call from those particular files to help answer some of the questions or to think about ways that you can like go crazy with, this. Oh no, what have I done? Oh no.
there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, this was one of the memos that it created. And the great thing about projects, you'll see the little person icon is that you can share this with your teammates as well. So they can see what you're creating, work on memos with you, see what the updated research is so that everyone is working from the same type of information as well.
Yeah, I love this. We are starting to use this a lot on our team, even just between me and like one or two other people who may be working on like the same question, and we're trying to work at it on it like and have context shared amongst the two of us or three of us, whatever the team is, so that we're like, I already ran that search. I already grabbed all the contracts. I already did all that. I already grabbed, and then that person can just from your work keep layering on. And so it's a great, I don't know, collaborative environment for you. Like,
Mhm.
I think it's like going into that next level. I think a lot of people are used to having Google Drive or Box or someplace. And I think that was a big game changer. Google Docs, Google Sheets, all of those productivity like evolutions were great and they're really useful. But this takes it to a whole new level because it can do it across a bunch of those things. It can call all of those things at once. It can combine it with web search. And now you can like basically use it to collaborate with your teammate who also wants to bring in this exact type of context.
And speaking of layering, do you want to click through Brain real quick in this
Oh
project?
yeah. Let's see if I can. Uh,
Oh no.
I
Maybe
know.
click
I'm like
back and then click on that folder
back, back, back,
more. Yeah, and then click
and
commercial
then
litigation
okay,
up
there we
top.
go.
Yeah, there we go. And then you can click on Brain.
The
So
brain.
when it's Brain is like memory.
Yeah.
I love our naming convention. And what it'll do is that when you have multiple people working on the same type of project, it's going to develop and remember all these different concepts, these entities, and these work streams, and how they all relate to one another. And this can also either call out relationships with certain concepts that maybe you as an individual might not call out, but as a teammate, you have different amongst teammates, you can call out and see the connection. So you can see this context graph on the left-hand side. You can even click into one of the entities on the dots above, and then you can see a whole deep dive of how does it connect to each other? What does this mean? What does it own? And sometimes it doesn't always get it right, or sometimes it doesn't have the full context. And that is where you can edit it on the upper right corner to say, here's what they actually own. Um, my mid-sized litigation boutique at my tiny size litigation boutique. This is a fictitious law firm that I created. You can save that and it'll continue to remember this memory as well. And what I find really cool about Brain as well is that some some of our customers are firms and they have all these different customers and clients. Maybe you don't want that memory shared across your entire Perplexity memory, and you can keep this memory contained in this specific project as well. So there's a toggleable, say that fast 10 times, toggleable version to say, I want it contained here, or I want it to share information across the board.
Yeah, I love like basically it's a fancy way to say it just remembers a lot more context about your particular project, your needs, who you are, and the more context that you can kind of preload or that you can borrow from previous assignments, like it doesn't have to be like I've started projects without having like without writing any of this or without writing any of that, without bringing any files to it. But I know it's something I want to call on as I go, and so you don't have it, there isn't like, oh, I have to go build the brain or build this project. Instead, you can start from wherever you're at. And then as you're starting to find this helpful, you can start layering in more and more things. And you'll be surprised, like, ooh, now I have an idea. Now this is like feeling lighter, right? Like this is an idea.
Mhm.
What if I dumped in all of these cases and then I wanted to look at this and I bring in this context. Um, I think it can be really helpful and it works just as well if you don't have this all set up. You can ask it
Mhm.
basically to develop it for you. You can ask it to, you can iterate with it. It's not like, oh my God, I set up the brain wrong. And it's very transparent how it's like bringing in different pieces of context. And so again, as Jenny said, like if it got the wrong end of the stick about something, you can go and change it and edit. But it really does make your life a lot easier because then you can kind of start to like level up given like again, I'm going to go back to my chessboard metaphor because it's powerful. You're basically like resetting the chessboard from the last time you were looking at that particular like in that particular game. and you're going back to it exactly at the turn that you want to be at instead of like, oh, let me like reset the board from scratch. You're like, it just immediately drops right into where you left off. You're about to
Mm.
checkmate Jenny, and like, then you got called away, and now you're back, right? You're ready to like put the moves on her. It can just bring all that in, and then it helps you, given it's basically like you get to kind of reflect back like what your challenges are. And then once you kind of see them, it helps you figure out what the next steps are and gives you new insights. And like I feel like a burst of creativity when I have a lot of context put into these like projects, because then you're like, ooh, then you can start to help me think about like all of these constraints and all of these constraints and all of these constraints, and basically like your whole life, right? Your whole life has a bunch of different patterns and constraints that you're trying to bring in. And the creativity is in that like negative space. And so that's, I think, what the like where projects come in. They can help you find that negative space where you are like, ooh, hadn't thought about that yet. Like, that's amazing. And you knew that I couldn't do this, and you knew you couldn't do that. And just to like leave it on like a really silly example, I started using this on in my personal life. And I was like stuck on how are we going to get my 3-year-old daughter out the door? And she hates getting her hair done. And they're basically like, so maybe do her hair the night before. Boom. Like, I mean, that's very, very simple and really silly, but honestly had never occurred to me before. And so this could be like the new way I've leveled up. That's the new negative space that I've found in my life. New insight I've gained. And I think that that's like what's very powerful about this. It isn't just like a static file repository. It's putting you at, like right at the exact moment you're going to checkmate Jenny, and you're like, what do I do now? What's the move?
And remember, a lot of folks were like, how is this different? We are built on our web index that is built for AI. And people are asking, does it understand this system? Does it understand that specific framework? There is research out on the web of these specific frameworks and systems that you're already referring to, and it's always just saying, hey, go reference this, maybe go look at this specific website that I know has laid out the principles the best. So that is where it's going to give you the accurate information, and it's not going to just give you context from when the model was last trained on. My personal experience, I actually got into a bike accident this past weekend, and I
Oh,
immediately created a project and say, please give me legal and health advice best as you can, sourcing the web. Of how I can manage it. So it'll automatically update that brain as you update it. I brought in my notes from the emergency room. I uploaded my x-rays. I
great
used our
example.
health premium sources, and that brain is going to update by itself. But I hope you could found this helpful both for work and for personal. I hope your daughter's hair is holding out throughout the
I
night.
know. We'll see if that's a fix. There may be a new constraint soon. Toddlers are very
Yeah,
good at finding constraints,
yes.
but yes,
Someone did
I love
ask.
this.
We are HIPAA certified. I'm not just uploading my x-rays into the ether. And I do have data retention configured as well for a few days. So
Right.
we will be sharing the recording, we'll be sharing the queries, we'll be sharing the commonly asked questions and a list of FAQs. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please follow up and look out for more sessions. But thanks so much for being a great crowd, asking amazing questions. Allison, thanks for being a great presenter, and thank
Well,
you
thank you,
to the
Jenny.
folks
Thanks for
in the back.
organizing everything. This is always so
Oh,
fun.
especially when the lights turn off at the end. All right, I'll leave it to you there. But have a great week, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.